Hi, welcome to our channel. Today, we'll be learning how to play 7 Wonders Duel. To set up, place the board between the two players, with the conflict pawn on the neutral space in the middle. Then put the 4 military tokens face up on these spaces, like this. These are the progress tokens. Give them a shuffle, and then draw 5 randomly, placing them face up on the provided spaces of the board and returning the rest to the box. Place the coins nearby as well, and give each player a number of them, totaling a value of 7. These are the wonders. Shuffle and draw 4 of them randomly, placing them face up between the two players. They will choose one of the wonders to collect, and then the second player will choose 2 from those that remain, with the first player taking the last one. Then you deal out 4 more. The second player now takes 1. The first player takes 2, and then the second player takes the last one. The players now have 4 wonders each, which they will keep face up in their own play areas, and the rest are returned to the box. The remaining cards should be sorted and shuffled onto separate decks based on their backs. There are decks for ages 1, 2, 3, and then some guilds. From each age, as you see me doing here, remove 3 cards in those decks, and then take 3 cards from the guild deck and shuffle them into the 3rd age deck. The rest you can also discard. Once they've been shuffled, set aside the decks for ages 2 and 3. We'll use those later. Now, we'll deal out the cards from the age 1 deck, following the pattern shown here on the back of the rulebook. White represents the face-up cards, and the colored ones are face down. You'll find it easiest if you start in the upper left. So in the end, it's going to look like this, which is basically the shape of a pyramid. In 7 Wonders Duel, players will construct buildings and wonders, gather riches, pursue science, and conduct warfare. The player who can do so the most successfully will win in one of 3 possible ways. The game is played over 3 ages, starting with the first age, with players taking turns back and forth. On your turn, you must choose an accessible card in the layout and play it. By accessible, we mean that there are no other cards on top of it. So at the start of the game, only these on the bottom row are available to us. When you take a card, you must use it one of 3 possible ways. One option you have is to construct the building. The card represents by paying its cost and placing it face up in front of you. The benefit of the card is shown on the colored banner at the top. As you gain buildings over the course of the game, you can sort and stack them by color, like this in front of you. Grey and brown buildings both provide similar benefit, so you can put them in the same stack. We'll see some of the different building benefits in a moment, but just note that the cost to build a structure will be shown here beneath the colored banner. If this area shows no symbols, as in the case of the lumber yard, then it's free to build. If it shows a coin value like this, then you must be able to pay that number of coins to the supply to build it. If it shows resource symbols like this or these, then you must be able to produce those resources from your civilization or purchase them. Some buildings will show a combination of coins and resources that you need to provide. The benefit of cards with brown and grey tops like these are that they'll provide you with the resources you'll pay for other buildings you want to construct. And the resources they provide are represented by pictures of either wood, stone, brick, papyrus, and glass. For example, if I had these already built in my civilization, then on each of my turns, I'm producing 1 wood, 1 brick, and 1 glass that I can use to pay for new buildings. But when you spend a resource, you don't lose it. You have those resources to spend again at the start of your next turn. For example, if I wanted to build this on a future turn, I could, because it requires brick and I have that resource in my civilization. However, if I want to construct the statue, it requires 2 bricks and I only have 1. That's it. You can always buy resources you're missing from the bank. The cost to buy any resource is 2 coins, plus the number of that symbol found in your opponent's brown and grey buildings. So if I'm trying to build this statue, which requires 2 bricks and I only have 1, I need 1 more. My opponent has built these buildings and isn't generating any bricks. Then it's only gonna cost me 2 coins for each brick that I need to buy. But now, let's assume my opponent had this building. Now when I want to buy a brick, it's going to cost me the usual 2 coins, plus 1 more for each brick my opponent has. So now, if I want to buy bricks that I need, they're going to cost me 2 coins as usual, plus 1 more for each brick my opponent produces. So in this case, I have to pay a total of 4 for each brick. I still pay the cost entirely to the bank, not my opponent. But because they've been collecting bricks, it makes it more expensive for me to buy it from the bank when I need it. As long as you have enough money to pay for them, there is no limit to the number of resources you can buy on your turn. Buildings you construct may not only provide you with a benefit here, but also a white symbol on the right. In the later ages, buildings may show a cost here and then a white symbol underneath. If you have buildings in your civilization that has this symbol on its upper banner, then instead of paying the cost here, which is 3 stone, you can just build the structure for free. Now that you know how to pay for buildings, let's look at some of the benefits they provide. This help sheet explains all of the symbols you'll find and what they mean. So let's go over a few key ones. Yellow buildings represent commerce and trade. For example, this benefit means that the cost of buying brick from the bank is now 1 instead of the usual 2. And you no longer have to pay extra for that resource, even if your opponent produces it in their civilization. This means that when you build this structure and you gain 4 gold from the supply, that's a one-time effect. These symbols mean that each turn you can choose to create one of the pictured resources. However, resources provided by yellow buildings do not affect how much an opponent has to pay the bank when they're buying resources they don't have. Blue banners represent civilian buildings and simply provide victory points, which are always shown inside of a laurel. Victory points are important because at the end of the third age, the player with the most victory points wins. Red buildings increase the strength of your military. For each of these symbols found on a structure you build, move the conflict token 1 space towards your opponent. If this causes the pawn to cross a dotted line into the space that contains the token, apply its effect and return it to the box. Getting here causes your opponent to lose 2 gold. Getting this far causes them to lose 5. Get the pawns all the way to your opponent's capital space and you'll immediately win the game. Green banners represents advancements in science, and there are 7 different science symbols. Anytime you build a science structure that provides you with an identical pair of symbols, like we see here, you can immediately choose one of the progress tokens on the game board to keep. These each provide you with unique benefits that again are defined on the help sheet. For example, if you collect this one called strategy, all future military buildings that you construct will advance the token 1 extra space. If you ever have ownership of 6 different science symbols, you immediately win the game. So we know when taking an accessible card, you have the option of constructing it as a building. However, you can also take it and place it in the central discard pile. You then gain 2 coins from the bank and 1 more for every yellow building you have in your city. So if this was my city, I would gain 1 additional coin. Players are free to examine cards in the discard pile at any time. The final option you have when collecting a card is constructing one of your wonders. You don't pay the cost shown on the cards you chose. Instead, you'll pay the cost here for the wonder you're building and slip the chosen card underneath like this. To complete this, for example, you can see I would need 1 papyrus, 1 glass and 2 wood to build this wonder. I have everything except for that extra wood, so I will have to pay 2 gold to cover that, assuming my opponent doesn't have any wood that they're producing as well, in which case I would have to pay extra. After the wonder is constructed, you then gain benefits of these symbols. Again, the help sheet will guide you through them, but I'll explain these 3 right now. This means you would gain 6 gold from the bank. The bottom one means you'll get 3 victory points at the end of the game, and this middle symbol means you now get to take an immediate second turn. Only a total of 7 wonders can be built over the course of the game. Once the 7th wonder has been constructed, the last remaining wonder is returned to the box. We've now seen all the different ways a card can be used once it's chosen. After playing a card, you then review any cards which were hidden and are now accessible. For example, this one's not accessible yet. It has still another card on top of it, but once this one has been removed, then this one is flipped over so the player can see it. If a wonder would let you play an extra turn right away, you start your new turn after revealing new cards. An age will continue until all 20 cards in the play area have been used. If a player had built one of the wonders that gives them an immediate second turn, but all the cards in the age have been used, then that extra turn is lost. Once an age is over, it is time to set up the next one. Here we take the H2 deck and deal it out exactly as shown here in the rulebook. So we've built a pyramid again, but this time it's upside down. The player who has the conflict pawn closest to their side of the board at this time has the weakest military and will choose which player begins the new age. If the pawn is in the center, then the player who played a card last in the previous age will go first. Otherwise, the second age follows the same rules as the first and will end as soon as all of those cards have been used. At the end of the second age, you set up the third age cards as shown on the back of the rulebook. And this creates kind of a circle shape. If the game doesn't end due to a player moving the conflict pawn to an opponent's capital or through a player collecting 6 unique science symbols, then at the end of the third age, the player with the most victory points is the winner. You can use the included notepad to help you calculate the scores. You gain points based on how far you've advanced the conflict pawn towards the enemy's capital. In this case, the player here would gain 5 points for having pushed the pawn into this section on the board. You also add points showing on your buildings, like these here, as well as those on the wonders that you've built and on any progress token you've collected. For each set of 3 coins, you gain 1 point. So we have 5 points here, which means the player would get 1 extra point for those. The player with the most points wins. In the case of a tie, the player with the most points from blue building wins. And if there's still a tie, both player wins. And that's how you play 7 Wonders Duel. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this tutorial, like, share and subscribe for more game guides. Let us know in the comments which game you'd like to master next.